Pythagoras, the ancient Greek philosopher, mathematician, and mystic, believed that this inherent harmony found in nature could also be expressed through music. He posited the concept of the harmony of the spheres, suggesting that the distances and motions of celestial bodies, such as planets and stars, produce harmonious sound as they move in their orbits that correspond to specific mathematical ratios. He believed that these harmonious proportions could be represented through musical notes and intervals, linking the principles of music and mathematics to the structure of the universe. And his teachings profoundly influenced the development of music theory and, most importantly, the understanding of the relationship between music and nature. Ancient societies lived in close contact with nature, and they were keen observers of the sounds present in their environment. They heard the rhythmic patterns of raindrops, the rustling of leaves, and the chirping of birds. And in their attempt to understand and connect with nature, early human culture sought to imitate the sounds they heard through vocalizations and percussions. These sounds of nature likely influenced the development of early musical expressions, and eventually, the creation of musical instruments was often inspired by natural materials, such as shells, bones, or animal skin. And while I was diving through the greatest artists' tendencies, I've seen one interesting pattern that most of them shared: their tendency to leave the city and seek solace in the countryside as a form of escape. For example, nature was where Beethoven went when he was devastated or in need of inspiration. So at some point, we need to learn how to block an outside noise, because for artists, learning to shield themselves from external distractions becomes crucial, as constant noise can hinder their creative process, their productivity. And nature, in fact, was the first form of artistic expression, scientifically or biblically. In conclusion, an artist using nature as a shield in the sake of their artistic sanity is a great tactic, in my opinion. Nicolas Namoradze, a pianist and composer, has spoken at length about the importance of mental practice in his master classes, which can be found in the description below. He explains that mental practice is not only essential for learning a piece, but also for understanding it on a deeper level, emotionally or intellectually, and also for expressing an individual within oneself, which is the ultimate goal of any artist, because it can be the difference between merely playing notes and truly performing a piece of music. In other words, mental practice is any kind of practice away from the instrument. It can be broken down into 3 stages in many ways, but I'll show you my version. The first stage is the basics, to learn and memorize the piece. It is important to divide a piece into small musical parts, so you'll learn it little by little, and you'll have a step-by-step guide instead of struggling to learn the whole piece right away. And don't forget to make your mind also remember it with the help of your harmonic knowledge, which will make you understand the role and purpose that a particular chord or harmonic progression serves within a musical context. It is best to annotate your scores while you analyze. My teacher told me once that he snuck into the balcony of Sviatoslav Richter's rehearsal when he was young, and while my teacher was listening and waiting for him to perform, Richter was only playing one passage over and over again, and he didn't move on at all. He was a perfectionist, so using your brain doesn't prevent you from physical activities. Furthermore, be very careful with the musical sighings because, as my teacher says again, pen was very expensive at that time, so Chopin wouldn't waste it if it wasn't that important. The second stage after learning and memorizing the basics is to study the score in depth, analyzing and understanding each note and its relation to others. This stage can be done in various ways. Firstly, put your scores in front of you, follow the music with your eyes and imagine it. But you must not move your fingers. You have to imagine that you're playing it only with your mind, because when you move your hands, your physical barriers appear and you're subconsciously focusing more on your body. This kind of mental practice can help you avoid becoming too focused on your physical abilities and take the necessary steps to fully understand the music. Sometimes when we play, our mind turns off, as our muscles have a memory and the ability to function without us being focused. And of course, this helps performers a lot, but sometimes we become too reliant on this ability and zone out, relying fully on our muscles. Therefore, in this case that I showed you, you are not putting all of your energy into mechanical practice. For example, let's say that you have a very difficult passage to play, perhaps a Liszt or Prokofiev sonata. Instead of playing it over and over again for hours and hours, just get away from the piano and imagine yourself playing that passage exactly the way you want to play it. Then imagine yourself sitting at the piano, seeing with your own two eyes, your hands making these motions, basically what it looks like when you play it correctly. Listening to great pianist recordings while taking notes on the score is another effective way to analyze and study the music. Additionally, taking notes on what other pianists do in their interpretations of a particular piece can help you improve your skills as a pianist. This sounds banal, but every time I hear things I have not heard before from them. I guess when you're taking notes while listening, you listen more carefully, and yes, sometimes those masters do things that are not easy to fully understand and could take a lifetime to do so. But just starting to analyze their playing is a beginning. The third stage after memorizing and learning the score perfectly is to imagine that you have no any technical or physical limitations. Like if you were not a human and were some kind of floating energy that could do anything with the sound, how would you play in that case? By setting high standards for yourself and imagining your performance without any technical or physical limitations, you can improve your ability to interpret. The key here is to imagine you're playing exactly as you want it and follow the scores with your eyes while imagining it. And to imagine it perfectly, you need to imagine tone, tempo, dynamics, movements, sound that you would produce, and how would all this feel like in your hands. Question is, how is this process actually beneficial? The brain has this thing where it cannot tell the difference between reality and fantasy, and this is proved by many researchers. When you're imagining your perfect version of your performance in your head, brain thinks that it is reality. So this whole process that I showed you is basically practice plus manifestation. Then you are beginning to generate music from an internal place. As Daniel Truffaut once said, don't forget to not only warm up your hands before a concert, but also warm up your soul. They're talking. To fully understand a person, we need to study the environment in which they grew up. the ideologies and emotional states that surrounded them, and the choices they've made. How their childhood surroundings shaped their worldview and their attachment style. And in order to fully understand the musical piece, we need to know the story behind it. What made composer write it? What was its historical context or political state? Was there war or were they in love? For example, Chopin's 13th mazurka was the first one that Chopin wrote in a tragic, fragile manner, distinct from other 12 mazurkas that he had composed at that time. And when composing this mazurka, it had been 1 year since his exile from his homeland, Poland, parents, friends, and his childhood home. And he conveyed his desperation, loneliness, and isolation in this short, simply violin piece. And because of this, I have to study what the composer was going through and what their psyche was, because music is understood by empathy. And if I want to play one of Prokofiev's war sonatas, I have to study Second World War. Psychologist Carl Jung once said, "The meeting of two personalities is like a contact of two chemical substances. If there is any reaction, both are transformed. And while we're playing, we get into a chemical reaction with the composer, with the piece, and we are transformed. In fact, we actually go into a trance while playing, so if you truly understand and feel the piece's idea and pain, the composer's soul will take over your playing. But that doesn't mean it's not also you. It's a chemical reaction of two personalities that creates something new." And now it's time for Chopin's miniature pieces that will destroy your mental health.